class, pag-usapan naman natin ang conversion cycle controls. Okay? So, remember and always remember that we have the 6 general category of your control activities. Yun po yung susundan natin dito. Iisa-isahin po natin sila. Umpisahan natin sa transaction authorization. Now, under this conversion cycle, number 1, in the traditional manufacturing environment, production planning and control authorize the production activity via formal work order. So ang isa po na authorization po natin ay sa pamamagitan ng work order. Provided na properly authorized approved po ito ng mga tamang signatories. Tamang nag-a-approve para doon sa work order para ma-initiate na, maumpisahan na yung production. Kasi po, itong document na ito, it reflects the production requirements. Okay? The difference between the expected demand of products or based on the sales forecast and the finished goods inventory on hand. Without the formal work order, wala po tayong production na mangyayari. Kasi remember, ito po yung ating initiator. Ito po yung nag-i-initiate para maumpisahan na natin yung production. So that is one transaction authorization. Pangalawa, yung move tickets. Ano ba yung silbi ng move tickets? Para ma-authorize yung movement from one assembly line or from one work center to another. Etong ating mga move tickets, meron niyang pirma dapat ng supervisor doon sa mga work center. Okay, so that pag may pirma po yan, ibig sabihin na ino-authorize na yung activities for each batch and for the movement of products through the various work centers. Kasi kada work center, ibang operations yan eh. Pag napirmahan na yan, nalipat na po yan sa kabilang work center, ibig sabihin, aprobado po ang paglilipat niyan kasi meron po tayong signed ng supervisor yung move ticket. Okay? So that is another transaction authorization. Pangatlo, yung ating mga materials requisition or excess materials requisitions. Ginagamit po natin ito para properly authorize yung mga request natin for the release of materials. Kasi remember, your bill of materials, naka-identify doon lahat ng mga materials na kinakailangan. Siyempre, para makuha natin yon, kinakailangan nating mag-prepare ng materials requisition. Pag kulang at kinakailangan natin ng additional ng mga materials, we will have to create the excess materials requisition form. So that once it is approved, once it is signed, saka lamang po i-allow ni storekeeper na bigyan kung sino man po yung in charge doon sa pagre-request or yung mga work center. Okay? So that is another transaction authorization control. Okay? So usually po ito ay may mga approval, yung mga forms na ito. Next, pag-usapan naman po natin yung segregation of duties. Ang isa sa mga objective or yung isa sa mga target natin for this control, yung SOD control, ay paghiwalayin yung trabaho ng transaction authorization sa transaction processing. Iba yung mag-a-approve, iba yung magpa-process. Kasi kung magkasama yan, baka i-proseso ko yung isang transaction na hindi naman dapat. Dahil ako din yung approver, so meron akong discretion, meron akong power para gawin yon kahit hindi naman dapat. As a result, the production planning and control department is organizationally segregated from the work centers. So pinaghihiwalay po natin dito yung functions ng actual production as compared doon sa mga tao sa production planning and control department. Kasi sila yung nag-schedule, sila yung nagpaplano, kailan yung production, ilan yung mga kinakailangan nating i-produce based doon sa mga sales orders or sa mga sales requests, or yung mga sales forecasts. So we have to segregate the functions of the work centers from the production planning and control department. Another control objective for SOD is to separate record keeping from asset custody. Kaya nga, number 1, yung inventory control, siya yung nagbe-maintain ng accounting records for raw materials and finished goods. Hinihiwalay po itong activities na ito from the physical custody ng inventories na makikita natin sa mga storeroom, sa mga warehouse. Okay? From the material storeroom and from the finished good warehouse functions. Kung pinaghihiwalay po yung mga raw materials at saka yung mga finished goods, kung meron silang sapat na mga areas. Kasi sila yung may custody of assets. Kasi ang problema nito, kung yung isang tao in charge or meron siyang access sa record keeping at may access din siya dahil trabaho na din niya yung custody of asset, pwede itong i-misappropriate, di ba? Nakawin ito tapos mag-record na lang ng fictitious transaction. So hindi po pwede 'yon. Number 2, the cost accounting function accounts for WIP and should be separate from the work centers in the production process. So hinihiwalay po natin yung work center, ito yung actual production. Nakahiwalay po yung monitoring ng work in process. Sa cost accounting naman po 'yon. Dapat magkahiwalay sila. Otherwise, kung nandoon din yung power noon, yung cost accounting function for not monitoring the WIP is also given to the work center or vice versa, it may encourage fraud. Okay? So yan po yung mga natin, controls natin on SOD. Meron pang isa. Finally, to maintain the independence of the GL function as a verification step, the GL department must be separate from departments keeping subsidiary accounts. Please take note, this is under a traditional manufacturing setup. Kasi nga, paulit-ulit ko rin sinasabi, pag mga electronic na tayo, computerized yan, kaya yung mga GL ay usually accounted for na rin because of our electronic process. The GL department is organizationally segregated from inventory control and cost accounting. Okay? So, hinihiwalay po natin yung GL department under a traditional manufacturing setup. Dito naman po tayo sa supervision. Okay? Number 1, the supervisors in the work centers, they oversee the usage of raw materials in the production process. This helps to ensure that all materials released from stores are used in production and that waste is minimized. Employee time cards and job tickets must also be checked for accuracy. O dapat, yung nasa work center, lagi naman po yan may mga production supervisors and they oversee the usage of raw materials. Kung kinakailangan ng additional, di magre-request tayo. And isa pa kasi, ang target kasi natin dito, dapat meron tayong supervision para ma-minimize yung mga wastes. Baka kasi mamaya hindi nababantayan o mali-mali yung mga staff, yung mga production personnel sa kanilang ginagawa sa production, maraming nasasayang na raw materials. So we want to minimize wastage. So dapat may proper supervision para alerto yung mga tao, aware na sila na may nakatingin sa kanila, may nagbabantay sa kanila, so bawas kalokohan. Employee time cards and job tickets must also be checked for accuracy. Hindi pwede na diretso na yan sa payroll for processing. Dapat merong yang checker, approver. Kahit naman kami sa ibang mga companies na naka-time cards pa, ikaw yung andun, meron kang time in, time out, pinipirmahan pa yan ng supervisor para lang pagdating sa payroll, makita nila, okay, approved ito. So, that is understood to be accurate and correct. Okay, so yun naman po ang supervision. Meron pa po tayo, pangalawa, supervisors also observe and review timekeeping activities, and this promotes accurate time cards and job tickets. So, yung ating mga timekeeping activities, they also review. Let's say, halimbawa, aside from the time cards, chine-check din yung attendance para lang ma-sure na tama talaga yung nasa time cards. Minsan kasi, eto although hindi naman ito practice ng karamihan, pero may mga iba na pirma lang ng pirma sa mga time cards, hindi naman bine-verify. Okay, parang hindi kita nakita. Okay? Yung iba, yung mga security logs, yung mga logbooks, pang-confirm, pang-verify, para lang ma-check. Double check ko nga na itong employee na ito, pumasok siya, perfect attendance. Kung doon ba sa security log, perfect attendance nga ba talaga yan? Or baka may mga absences. So para meron tayong pang-validate, pang-check ng ating time cards, no? For the timekeeping activities. So trabaho naman po yan ng mga supervisors. Okay? We want to promote accurate employee time cards and job tickets kasi remember, ito po ay resources, economic resources. Pera, convertible, pera din kasi yan kasi payroll po ito, no? So we want to minimize errors or fraud, no? Employee fraud. Ayan. So that's for the supervision. Dito naman po tayo sa access control. Una, pag-usapan natin yung direct access to assets. Nabubulol ako, no? The nature of the physical product and the production process influences the type of access controls needed. Number 1, yung mga companies or the firms often limit access to sensitive areas. Hindi po lahat ng mga empleyado may access sa storage areas, sa production work centers, sa mga warehouse. Limited lang kung sino lamang talaga yung mga personnel na doon nagtatrabaho. Control methods used include identification badges, mga ID cards, na para or bago ka makapasok doon sa kwarto na yon sa storage area, itatap mo siya para ma-unlock at makapasok ka. Kung wala kang mga badges, walang identification, hindi ka doon makakapasok. Meron tayong mga security guards. May mga observation device, mga CCTVs, no? And various electronic sensors and alarms. Ito sa mga manufacturing companies, pag nakapasok na kayo, nakatour kayo, no? Maririnig mo daming mga alarms, mga sensors. Toot, toot, toot. Tapos ang mga alarms and sensors, maririnig mo yan. So, ginagamit po ito as control measures, no? Para masigurado natin na walang nagkakaroon ng abuse sa access. Access controls kasi ito. Number 2, the use of standard costs provide a type of access control. Paggamit daw ng standard cost. By specifying the quantities of materials and labor authorized for each product, the firm limits unauthorized access to those resources. To obtain excess quantities requires a special authorization and formal documentation. Nakabase kasi tayo sa standard hours, sa standard materials or standard units. Kung ano yung nakalagay doon, yun lamang yung i-issue. Kung kinulang tayo, kailangan nating mag-undergo ng additional request, no? Which requires authorization also and formal documentation. So, nalilimit natin ang mga abuse access din. Okay? Next, indirect access naman to assets. Assets such as cash and inventories can be manipulated through access to the source documents that control them. Pwede mong madaya yung cash, pwede kang makapagnakaw ng mga inventories kung meron kang access sa source documents, di ba? Pwede mong dayain. Halimbawa, ang quantities na nakalagay sa source documents sa mga invoice 100. Tapos biglang sabihin na natin 100. Tapos bigla mong nadaya, nagawa mong 90. Tapos dahil may access ka pa doon sa sa storage, sa warehouse, nanakaw mo yung 10. So in the conversion cycle, critical documents include materials requisition, excess materials requisition, and employee time cards. A method of control that also supports an audit trail is the use of pre-numbered documents. Kaya kinakailangan ina-apply natin yung mga pre-numbered documents para nakikita talaga na walang walang lapses, walang mga laktaw-laktaw, walang mga duplication. Kasi pag mga hindi pre-numbered, paano masabi na kumpleto? Kasi halimbawa, on the point of view of the auditor, if I will have to review yung mga source documents, tapos hindi pre-numbered, paano ka masasabi na complete siya? Paano ako magkakaroon ng comfort na lahat ng mga transactions ay nasa harap ko na, hindi naman siya pre-numbered? Okay, so that is one way of verifying the completeness. Okay? Let's proceed naman sa accounting records. Use of work orders, cost sheets, move tickets, job tickets, materials requisition, yung work in progress or work in process file, finished goods inventory file, no? Sa pamamagitan ng mga pre-numbered source documents and referencing this in the WIP records, a company can trace every item of finished goods inventory back through the production process to its source. This is essential in detecting errors in production and record keeping, locating batches lost in the production, and performing periodic audits. So actually, nabanggit ko nakwento ko na a while ago, nung kinikwento ko yung sa mga audit point of view. But again, when we are talking of accounting records kasi yung relevance ng audit trails para from the finished goods, no, from the production, completion ng production, pwede natin itong matrace pabalik sa mga source documents para ma-check natin wala bang nawawala, no? Wala bang mga problema, wala bang errors or fraud na nangyayari. Okay? So that is the essence, the importance of having records, no, documents as much as possible. Okay. Now, let's move on to the last control activity type, the independent verification. Number 1, cost accounting reconciles the materials and labor usage taken from materials requisition and job tickets within the prescribed standards. So, chine-check natin, no? Kaya nga meron tayong details. Ito yung standard natin. Standard materials, no? Standard hours versus our actual. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng reconciliation. Cost accounting personnel may then identify departures from prescribed standards. Diba meron akong naipakita sa inyo kanina nung prinisan ko yung mga documents? Kung yung actual natin, no, mas malaki sa standard or mas maliit, either way, no, bakit merong departure? Bakit merong difference? Bakit may variance, no? Kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng mga variance analysis para ma-identify natin ano yung cause, bakit tayo may difference. And it is reported din kasi. Kaya meron tayong mga variance analysis reports. In the traditional manufacturing environment, calculated variances are an important source of data for the management reporting system. Or remember, di ba, for future planning and for future correction. Okay? Para ma-improve yung production, we can anticipate possible changes, no? Because nagawa natin na ma-detect or ma-understand yung differences from actual versus from the standard. So yan yung purpose nitong ating mga analysis. Next po, the GL department also fulfills an important verification function by checking total movement of products from WIP to finished goods. Okay, this is done by reconciling journal vouchers from cost accounting and summaries of the inventory subsidiary ledger from inventory control. Okay, so nagkakaroon tayo ng reconciliation, comparison in terms of the movement of product from WIP to finished goods because of our documents available. Yung ating mga accounting records from various departments or functions. From the cost accounting, from the from our general ledger department. Okay? So yan po and also from the inventory control pala. So number 3 naman po tayo. And last, no? Internal and external auditors periodically verify the raw materials and finished goods inventories on hand through a physical count. O ngayon, kapag graduate na kayo, pumasa na kayo sa board, nagustuhan ninyong mag-audit, external audit, no? Ito yung mga gagawin ninyo pagdating ng December ng year-end. Imbes na nasa bahay kayo, nagkakanda kayo ng physical inventory count. Okay? To check, no? Yung existence, yung completeness, no? Ng ating mga inventories, mapa raw materials man yan or finished goods. Kasi ang tinatarget natin dyan, kung meron tayong listahan based sa records, no? Yun din ba yung makikita natin sa storage? At kung meron mang differences, no? Ano yung reason for the difference? Okay? We will have to coordinate with the persons on the ground para ma-assess bakit may differences. Is it traceable? Is it identifiable? Or mga issues talaga yon, mga variance na kinakailangang i-take note. They compare actual quantities against the inventory records and make adjustments to the records when necessary. Okay? Pag hindi matukoy kung bakit may variance, we have to adjust it. No? Depende sa variance na yon. Kung mas konti sa record, mas marami yung nasa actual, we have to adjust the inventory para mag-reflect, no? We always update the records based on what is actual. Hindi pwede na other way around na, okay, 100 units lang yung nasa records natin pero 101. Pwede ko na bang iuwi itong isa? Hindi po pwede. Ang masusunod is yung actual. Ang mag-a-update is yung nasa records natin. So yan po. No? In summary, ito yung mga control points in the system under the conversion cycle. Pero hindi ko na po ito ipapaliwanag isa-isa kasi ito din naman yung aking pinaliwanag na on the previous slides. Okay, so maraming salamat class for listening, for watching this video lecture. I hope you learned something from this video lecture. So para maiba naman, hindi ko na kayo tatanungin kung may naintindihan kayo. I'll see you sa susunod na video lecture. Bye-bye.